have to perform my dictating and writing tasks? Semyaza says surely, because we still have different tasks for you, and we have also planned to inform you about different interests. Billy says, you joking with me? Semyaza says this must be, however. Billy says, well, then it shall be. By the way, things will already start to get somewhat better with the writing, once you transmit the reports to me. Semyaza says, sure, I know. But you should still pay very much attention to your health. Billy says it has, however, improved tremendously. Semyaza says certainly. Nevertheless, mindfulness and caution are necessary. Billy says of course, it has already looked bad enough. Semyaza says that is correct. Some has improved itself, but now you must prepare for your circulatory system difficulties. They will lead to a health collapse in at least 2 years if you do not concern yourself better with this. Billy says it will certainly improve again. Semyaza says that is to be hoped for. But now, my friend, I would like to speak of those things concerning the future, which I promised to reveal to you at this time. Billy says fine, then fire away. Semyaza says sure, so listen it will be. Billy says one moment, please, because I still have a question, before I forget it. Semyaza says just ask. Billy says good, thank you. To what extent is it necessary that the group members become involved in the work? Semyaza says even if only one does not invest himself into this necessary measure, then a quick end will be inevitable. In addition, it is necessary that those group members, who are not residents of the center and who only stay there occasionally, also cooperate. Billy says good, that is clear. Then I would still like to ask about the time that you explained to me when, within some years, everything should have progressed so far that we would not have to work outside of the center anymore. Semyaza says that was before we knew the precise data. After its cognizance, we have now recognized that the time will not be sufficient for some years if you cannot find significant employment that brings enough money into the center. This would also mean that external employment would still need to be executed for at least about 12 years. But this will allow itself to be regulated, as the coming time will prove. New insights, which we received during a look into the future, promise that there is hardly a livelihood to be found in the center without external employment. Yet we await this because much can still change in this relation, even though it does not look likely in the distant future. Billy says thus, we wait. Semyaza says sure, because we must first see how everything will turn out in the coming time. We can't give ourselves high hopes, however, because one of the two possibilities of our look into the future shows that a livelihood resulting from work being performed in the center looks bleak. Billy says well, that is clear. Now, I have a question about the teachings and the corresponding examinations. Semyaza says obviously, the lessons must be learned and be moderately studied further, but in accordance with the given circumstances, we must make some mandatory restrictions and exercise a certain indulgence. This does not mean, however, that we can accept non-effort and non-learning. We will simply make certain restrictions and exercise a little indulgence. Billy says I find this to be right, but how are the examinations going to be accomplished now, and how does it stand with the printing of additional books? Semyaza says with respect to the tests, I will instruct you during my next visit on Thursday or Friday because we still have some points to clarify in this regard. Concerning the making of additional books, the arrangement that we already made is valid for the fulfillment of the 12-month period. If the 12 months prove themselves to be useful, then you should be producing 1 to 3 more books per year in the printing process, whereby these annually running enterprises, depending on the scale, will require a sum of 25,30 francs to be used. Billy says does it lie in our sole discretion, then, as to which writings we allow to be printed? Semyaza says sure. Billy says good, I think that this is fair. Do you have, in this connection, still further things for us? Semyaza says no. Billy says very well, then I only have a question regarding the Pfeffenberger family and still a final question regarding the instruction of Madeline, Dorrit and Rose. I have carefully considered this point myself in the meantime, whereby I have also discovered that they, like also my wife, have very great difficulties with learning. Their problem, however, is actually with the language. For me, I simply have problems with time if I should also still settle these additional tasks. It would be much easier if the group members concerned would simply note all of those things that are unintelligible to them as questions, after which I could then take the time, at my sole discretion, to discuss those questions with them. Semyaza says sure, that is acceptable. You can handle it in such a way. Regarding your wife, I know that quite severe linguistic problems exist for her because the German language is in no way as familiar as the Swiss German language. For this reason, it is appropriate that you dedicate yourself to her in this regard, particularly for all of those things that she is not able to understand. On the other hand, it is also necessary that she gets together with someone else in order also to learn in such a way. Billy says the latter she will do together with Beetle, but only when both feel in the mood for it. 1. Semyaza says sure. It should, therefore, become a definitive form. Billy says of course, but teaching Earth females something is often worse than trying to teach a donkey how to brush its teeth. Semyaza says you are wrong about that. Billy says you are very careless. Semyaza says I don't understand. Billy says one might interpret your words, like also mine, in such a way that you are misogynistic, as this has often been said about me. Semyaza says but this is as far from you as it also is from me. Billy says of course, but you forget the role and position of women on Earth. Semyaza says but only because it sometimes appears to be an insurmountable thing to explain the logic of something to an Earth woman. Billy says of course, but this doesn't want to be understood. It is then said that one wants to suppress women. Instead of it being accepted that one wants to teach them and give them the same rights as men, it is then, instead, completely misunderstood and one falls under her hostility. Semyaza says that is extremely illogical. Billy says it is, however, still the case. Semyaza says I didn't say that in regards to your explanation but because it is actually like that. Billy says oh, I see. Now, the women just always think that you want to wipe them out and trample them underfoot. I'm sorry, you don't understand. By you, I, of course, mean someone. Thus, that someone wants to wipe them out and trample them underfoot. Semyaza says the earthly women were, unfortunately, kept away from all knowledge and all rights for many millennia, which is why they still live in this role today. Billy says right. But now, let's talk about the future. I did, indeed, interrupt you. Semyaza says I will begin with this shortly, but for the time being, there is still the first part of your question, which I still have to answer. I discussed with you in detail about Ferdinand and Ingrid in regards to their new residence and its construction. I contemplated whether they are determined to make a branch center out of this home for you and carry out the necessary work in Austria. If they are willing to do this, then it will be a necessity that you go there and thoroughly inspect everything, in order to give them the appropriate and necessary guidance. It will, unfortunately, be additional work for you, but it is also inescapable work. Billy says this would give me some variety and be a nice change of air for me. Only, it isn't completely clear to me as to how I am to cooperate in giving advice on the construction. Semyaza says this will surely occur, for when you inspect everything, you will already know what your task will be. In any event, it is essential to ensure that a separate workspace is provided for you, according to your purpose and for you alone, because you will often be there and will work if everything can actually be furnished, which, however, is very questionable because during a look into the future,